GRAMPS YouTube channel presented by American Legacy Fishing, and this year powered by Dakota Lithium Batteries. American Legacy Fishing, world-class fishing gear, unmatched personal service. Now, before we get to tonight's special guest, and what a special guest it is, that he is, they are. Oh my goodness, we got a good show tonight. Let me take a moment to tell everyone about it's time to join the American Legacy Fishing Elite Program. $50 to sign up for your first year. You get $25 back in legacy rewards, 10% back on all orders with your legacy rewards bucks, free shipping, and access to the exclusive Facebook group and sales. American Legacy Fishing also has the best trade-in program, and that leads to the most extensive collection of used gear you can find online. And don't forget, if you're in the Evansville, Indiana area, you can stop by and check out the newly remodeled showroom, soon to be containing those new drops that we're going to see over the Bassmaster Classic this weekend. First, we're going to see a new rod series coming from St. Croix. And stay tuned, because here in the next week or two, that's right, I'm going to have that product developer, ran into him at Red Crest this weekend, come on the show and talk about all about this new line of rods from St. Croix. And then, of course, as everybody knows, my favorite rod maker, well, one of a few, of course, Loomis just dropped a new line of GLX rods, which we kind of anticipated was coming because of the big massive sales on those rods over the last 2 or 3 weeks. But enough of all that. That's the pitch. That's the talk. You know where to go. Gramps 10 at checkout will save you 10% on most things in stock, but you know some things are map protected. But enough of that. Let's go. What's up, bro?
What's going on, guys?
Hey, you excited for our guests tonight?
I can't wait. I have been looking forward to this since you told me they were going to be on, and man, I just
I'll
can't.
tell you what. When I heard about this, I reached out to my friend Dan Bortner, who I know Dan because he used to coach John Michael in football, but he happens to be the director of the Indiana Department of Natural Resources. And I'm like, dude, I'm hearing rumors of a monster. And it's hard to believe because, you know, a smallmouth record that has been standing for 31 years. But that I was like, dude, there's no way that this Smalley record was broken in the lake that everybody knows I hate. I call it the Dead Sea. It's literally 20 minutes north of me. And 8.8 pounds, 4 ounces, new Indiana state record. Oh my goodness. Let's bring on Rex Remington and his cousin Dean, two fishing partners, just like me and Jeremy. We're brothers, they're cousins. But I had to get these two cats on the live stream to talk about this monster smallmouth bass caught out of Lake Monroe of all places. Like I said, I'm 20 minutes from the dam. And I can't believe such a massive monster. And it's funny is my love-hate relationship with that lake, because my Indiana personal best came out of that lake back in 1998 when I think I won that trophy right there for my club classic way back in the day. Back when I used to boat fish and club fish and all that. But you guys that have been following the fishing fam for a while know we do more in the kayaks and space like that too. But these two have apparently figured something about Monroe out and actually go there to fish it on purpose. On purpose.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
So, gentlemen, let's start with Dean. Dean, tell us about you and what got you kind of into fishing, and how you got to met this yahoo who goes out and just breaks a record that, boy, it's hard to even think that's going to be broken again.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy. The last couple of weeks have been a lot of fun seeing all that. But yeah, I grew up in Anderson, Indiana, and then went got started fishing. I remember the first time I went fishing. Of course, my dad took me, and I think hopefully everybody's had that experience with their dad. It's kind of cool, and so we fished, a little bit when I was real young. But I had a neighbor that moved in when I was probably 11 or 12, and his name's Terry Gray. And that guy was an outdoorsman. And then that's when I really started getting into the fishing and getting the bug. So we fished all we could. I'm sure his wife was not happy sometimes because I was always knocking on the door seeing if he'd want to take me fishing. So, but over the years, Rex and I, being cousins, we grew up 10 minutes apart. So, we'd see each other once in a while. There's a few years difference in us. So age wise, so about 7, I think. But, so we didn't fish a lot together as kids, or I don't even know if we really ever did. But on occasion, I'd give him a call up because I knew he fished all the time. And I think maybe one of the first times we went out, we did go to bogs and in a little John boat and had a pretty good day, if I recall. And then I think it was 2010. My dad had passed away. And at that time I was focused on work, and that's about all I did was just work. But made a decision that I was going to get back into fishing. And so I called Rex, and we wound up going to Brush Creek, I think it was, and fished. And I wound up buying a John boat, and then we started fishing a little bit more. And then he kind of screwed up and asked me if I wanted to start fishing tournaments with him. And now I think that's probably an 11 or maybe 12, and he's been stuck with me ever since. So it's but that's when I really started to learn a lot about fishing. I'd go out and fish. That's all I did. I really didn't pay attention to a lot of the details of it. And then when I started fishing with him, and it was Monroe, but he's been fishing that place for 30 years or whatever. That's when I started learning what it was about. And so I can't thank Rex enough for showing me all that and bringing me on board with him. And it's been a blessing for me. So
That's awesome.
So Rex, how did you come into, kind of getting started in it? Because, you live in a town, you're just a hop, skip, and a jump for me over here. I mean, I pass your direction when I'm going to Brush Creek to go fish that with my kayak.
Right.
So, it's little smaller ponds and bodies of water like that are like easier for us kayaker guys, and there's some pretty good fish in that place too. But so what kind of got you started into bass fishing, and how did you end up becoming just kind of digging Monroe a little bit?
Well, like Dean, it started with my parents, my mom and dad. I was born and raised in Alexandria, just a few minutes north from where Dean's at. I went to Madison Grant High School, and start out crappie fishing as young as I can remember. We'd go up to Salamone, Miss Senoir Reservoir, and crappie fish, do a lot of pan fishing, and my mom and dad and brother, and we've took some trips to Canada and things like that. So it just kind of brought up outdoors hunting and fishing and the things like that. And then as I got older, I went to Purdue, got a job in Seymour, Indiana in 1990, moved down this way, and started fishing like Hardy Lake and Patoka, and mainly Hardy and Patoka because that was a little closer where I lived at the time. And after that, a few years later, then I moved to the Freetown area where I live now, and then the Monroe Lake was probably the closest lake. So as I got to fishing, I didn't really start bass fishing until I moved down here in 1990, and I had some buddies at work that were kind of into it, and they kind of got me interested in it, and would go out, and I was in a little John boat with a little little Johnson spin cast reel and a little touchdown worm out there, fishing lily pads for bass, and probably caught more panfish, doing stuff like that. But that kind of got me interested, and as I got to talking to these guys, learned more and more about it, and then started getting into some clubs and fishing a few little tournaments, as a co-angler and stuff like that. And then it's kind of where got into fishing a lot of USA bassins over at Monroe as a boater out of a little John boat, and just kept progressing from that. So like I say, Monroe is I've been over for probably 30 years fishing that place, and it's a love-hate relationship that I've had as many, probably more bad days than I've ever had on good days over there. But you know, there is some pretty nice largemouth populations over there, and some really big largemouth. You know, I've seen guys catch, but it's a tough lake. It's not. It's burned me more than I care to admit. So
it's definitely a feast or famine kind of lake. You mentioned that Johnson reels. I think Jeremy and I had a collection of those when we were kids from my grandpa, the old green ones.
Yep.
But oh boy, you touched you went back a couple of years on us then, back before I started collecting them little green Corrados and moving up a little bit in the world. But well, those Johnsons, it's funny you say that too, because I was literally on eBay a couple of weeks ago just looking to see if I could find an old one to add to my collection of old reels back here behind me. But yeah, boy, you talk about the good old days. People used to say, well, why did you always, cast one way and then switch hands? Well, back in our day, the hand only came on one side. There was no right and left hand options. That's just how we learned to do it. And I'm not going to change my ways these days. Oh my goodness. So for Lake Monroe, now do you guys just, going back, do you guys fish a lot of the Bass Nation, USA Bassin? What's kind of your, I'm sure you're gone back to like Red Man days and way back. You're talking fishing, in a lot of these places for the last 30 years.
Yeah, for me, I didn't really get into the tournament circuit, the team tournament, until I think the USA Bassin started over at Monroe, and I don't remember what year that was. Probably in maybe early 2000 or something like that. And me and a buddy had fished that, and we actually ended up winning the points deal for the first year over there, which is kind of pretty cool.
Oh,
But then after a while, I started fishing solo out of a John boat, the USA Bassins and so forth. That was, kind of limited that, because it allowed, John boat, small boat, guys to fish in that. And but then when Dean come on board, we started expanding into Hoosier Open. There were some Angler Choice team tournaments over there for a few years, and some of the Bass Nation stuff. Got a team deal. And just kind of things like that. It's kind of where we've been. And, some benefit tournaments like Sheriff's Tournament and some things like that we'd jump into, So, but it's just been mainly, Indiana stuff, Patoka, Monroe, River. Every once in a while, one of the classics or something will take us down to Gunnersville or Grand Lake, things like that. So.
Gotcha. Yeah, since Jeremy's moved back down this way, I know one of the things we wanted to I've got a low, and it's got live wells and whatnot in it. I mostly use it for crappie and whatever too. But I think since he's down here closer to me now, we'd like to maybe one of these days hop in and do some of the charity events. I know there's one of the ones that for veterans that they do, once or twice a year, and then various benefit stuff too. So we may just be jumping in just to make some donations to the local hammers. But, just kind of get back in the fun of it too. But, I know what you're saying when you talk about Monroe being hit or miss, because it's I've done a couple of heroes on the water tournaments there in a kayak, and it's just every now and then, you'll go out, but then you'll go catch a 5-pounder and then be like, okay, I got to go back again. There's always something about those bigger fish. They're in there. They're just not easy to find.
Yeah.
Well, it's interesting because you said USA Bassin, and I actually have a pretty close ties with that. The old tournament director, Rick Ingram, his son is actually my adopted son.
Oh, really?
I've been looking after Ricky since his dad passed, and he's been a part of my family for the last 15 years. So. I always wanted to go fish with Rick. Never got a chance to because he was always tournament directing. Mm-hmm. But we sat around a lot and talked fishing, and so when you said that, I was like, oh yeah, I forgot about all that. But so it's just kind of interesting with USA Bass, and great organization to be a part of. So I just wanted to throw that out there.
Well, I'll add that Rick was a very close friend of mine. Like I say, he was the first tournament director over at Monroe for the first USA Bassins. I got to know him well, and it was a very, very close friend of mine, and sorely missed. I assure you that.
So let's talk a little bit about this monster. I'm sure you've been getting hit by everybody and everybody. I mean, because it is something that doesn't happen often. You see a new state record broken, let alone in a game fish that is, so highly pursued here in Indiana, where most of us spend a lot of our time chasing smallmouth bass. As you met our good friends Josh Shrenko and the guys over at the Smalley Talk podcast, there's yet a whole different group that is completely obsessed with the quest for 23-inch fish. And boy, you sure found one. So tell us about this magical day on 3 March. You're out fishing, and it's early in the season for a lot of people, but a lot of people are out, they see that water start warming up a little bit, and the fish of all the flavors start, kind of coming out deep and working up a little bit. And man, just tell us how this all went down.
Well, it was actually the first trip of the year for me. I had planned to go Saturday, the day before, and my wife had some car issues, so I ended up doing a brake job on her vehicle. And if I'd have probably went Saturday, we may not even be here today talking. So I ended up putting my trip off until Sunday, and got over. I'm an early bird, so I'm over at daylight, crack of dawn at the lake, and it was just foggy as all get out. So I launched there at Paintown Ramp, and I basically sat in the little bay there at Paintown for the first hour or so and just kind of fished around because you couldn't see to go anywhere. So fooled around there for an hour or so, and after the fog lifted, then I was able to kind of run down lake a little bit and hit a few spots, and really hadn't had any luck until I pulled up on a little channel swing bank, and I'd caught a couple, caught a small largemouth, and then had lost another, felt like a decent fish, and I caught maybe a 3.5, maybe 4 pound largemouth. And then a couple casts later, then I kind of hooked into that big one.
So now people know smallies fight. And it seems to me like the smaller they are, especially the river smallies, it's like their tail's on fire and they're doing everything to go anywhere, just to get away. I'm kind of wondering, did you think it was the smallmouth at first? I mean, was this battling because everybody has a vision of,
Yeah.
But we know the river fish are a little bit different than lake fish as well. So how was the fight with this thing?
Well, when I first set the hook, I was I could feel the big head shakes, and just started bulldogging pretty hard, pulling some drag, and I knew it was a big fish, but had no idea. It kind of fought a little bit, and it kind of come up on top and kind of rolled on top a little bit. I saw it. I knew it was a big fish, but it wasn't until I had netted it and laid it in the bottom of the boat that I realized it was a smallmouth.
Wow.
And so I just thought it was a big largemouth the whole time. So because I never really got a good look at it. So
yeah. Now, I mean, we got to. I know a lot of folks protect spots in places, and that's obviously not what we're looking for too. But were you fishing a particular technique early season, dragging a jig, jerk baits? What was your kind of arsenal laid out on the deck for your first trip of the year? Already, did you have something in mind? A lot of guys with a lot of experience kind of know the areas they want to start with based on water temp, what patterns we kind of got going on. That one over there will spend 3 days doing research before he even thinks about hitting the water. So kind of tell us what you had laid out on your deck and what your game plan for the day was.
Well, I'd pretty much pulled out the same rods I had tied up from my last tournament back in December. So
right.
I hadn't changed anything. Bait.
He's already restrung and redone everything.
Yeah.
Mine are literally from the last time I went fishing before it got cold.
And I normally would have.
Oddly enough, when I caught my personal best smallmouth, that was 19.5 inches. So
So yeah, I'd had the same stuff out, jigs and jerk baits and swim baits, and I think I had an A-rig laying out and chatter baits and just different stuff from leftovers. But and I know I probably got some of my tournament buddies listening today, and I will tell them this will probably be the only time I'll ever divulge what I caught fish on, because they know when I take off in the morning, Dean and I, all of our wraps or lures are all wrapped up. They don't see that. And when we come in at the end of the day, it's all put away. There's no scraps laying on the boat. So this is the only freebie they're going to get from me. So, but yeah, I was kept throwing a jerk bait that morning and caught it on a jerk bait.
Throwing it on a jerk bait. See, my go-to is a Ned rig, because everybody who knows me knows I never throw a Ned rig.
yeah. So,
but then again, I say that they all watch my YouTube channel. And that's one thing about YouTubers and kayak guys, especially if we got cameras running, you're seeing where I'm catching them, what I'm catching them on, how I'm catching them, when. I don't care. I do tournaments for fun. It's not like you. I mean, I get the whole the serious angler thing, but you know, my other side of this is I got started to doing YouTube during COVID, and a lot of people were coming back to fishing after being away from it for a long time. So obviously, I'm showing everybody everything that I'm doing, where I'm fishing, how I'm doing it, to kind of encourage them to come do the same things. But I remember me and Jeremy back in our boater days, it was like you wouldn't find a scrap of nothing. or we would plant something on the deck, you know, maybe an empty bag that we knew we didn't throw that day, just to throw people off too. So yeah, we've had to play that game here and there too. So jerk bait, you know, what kind of rod and reel combo do you like for throwing your jerk baits? Your line setup is, you know, I know some people change it around based on, you know, early season, and then again later on, if it warms up a little bit, you want a little faster action. What's your kind of go-to rod and reel setup for that?
I like a medium action rod, graphite rod. The one I was using that particular day was a St. Croix rod.
Okay.
And normally I'm throwing it on 12-pound fluorocarbon. So
yeah, that's me.
Yeah, and I mean, like I say, early in the spring, you know, I've caught a lot of good fish on jerk bait. So you know, if I get too much smaller, I've had them, you know, wrap around stumps or stick ups and stuff and get broke off. But so that's usually my go-to rig. And then as the spring progresses in the summer, then I don't know, right or wrong, I kind of get away from the jerk bait a little bit and then don't pick it up again until probably fall. But
yeah. Any particular set of colors that you were playing with? Were you, I mean, I don't know what always seems like I never know what the forage in Monroe is looking for these days.
Well, the jerk bait I was using was a Berkeley Stunna, and it was
the old Hank Cherry special.
Yeah, it's a stealth shad color, so it's kind of got a little tinge of chartreuse on the side.
Okay.
But yeah, that was the bait that was caught on. So.
Oh, very cool. Jeremy?
Yeah, I'm thinking about jerk baits because that's the one technique that I put down when I left Lake Fork and never picked it back up. And now I realize I need to be throwing it more. I just, one of the main questions that I had was, what is it about Monroe prior to you catching this fish that keeps bringing you back to Monroe? Because I don't want to harp on it too much, but I'm really curious. There's a lot there if you know what's there, you know, that is really fishable. But most people don't know all the stuff, like the old road with the bridge, you know, getting aerial photos of the lake before it was filled up, and learning that way. What is it about Monroe that kept you going back to it? Was it just that it was close, or was it because it offered you something different?
Well, it you know, starting out, when I first started to learn a little bit about bass fishing in Monroe, I had a good friend of mine, Bob Stout, that worked with me, and he was several years older, and he was a tournament fisherman, and he'd kind of, you know, he didn't really take me out and just draw a map and say, here, fish here, use this. He would kind of guide me a little bit, you know, give me some advice. And so, you know, like an example, I said, well, you know, you need to go learn Moore's Creek, let's say. You know, there's everything a bass needs is in Moore's Creek. So, and I'd go over and I'd spend days up in Moore's Creek with a little handheld Garmin GPS, a depth finder and just idling around in my John boat and marking stumps I found and drops and things like that and fishing it. So as I kind of learned a lot of the lake on my own, and as I started fishing some USA tournaments over there, would start to kind of figure out, you know, where, you know, you'd see where a lot of other people fish and things like that, and you kind of get an idea of you know, places that you ought to be, you know. And I've always kind of migrated. I'm more of an offshore fisherman over there, so
Okay.
from probably the end of the spawn until probably start of October, I'll never touch the bank again.
Right.
You know, but for Monroe, for me, it's you know, even up till this point, it's been a really special place because Dean and I, and even in USA alone, we've had some great days over there, both in tournaments and just fun fishing and things like that. So when I go over there, I always know what the potential, at least largemouth fishing, really is. I mean, we've had you know, 5 fish days over there, you know, 26, 27, 28 pound range, you know, and you know, we had a good one in the Hoosier Open one time where there were 6 fish, like 28 something. So we've caught some big bags over there and some big bass too. So that's kind of what keeps me going back. And there's, in between those good days, there's a hell of a lot of bad days, but you just got to take the good with the bad.
Oh, 100%. Now, Dean, since I kind of know who his mentor, you know, kind of got him started, before I'm going to ask you, because I was going to ask both of you who your like bass fishing mentor is. Dean, do I understand you live more down towards the Evansville area? Is that where you're at?
Yeah, that's correct. I'm a little town called Owensville, just probably 20 minutes north of Evansville, 15.
Okay, so you know where the bluegrass fish and wildlife area is at, right?
Yeah, drove through there today.
Because I bet you see a million of like me and Jeremy in our kayaks down there all the time, because that's like our spot.
Right.
So
Yeah,
you're driving up here where I despise the fish, and I'm going back down to where you live because there's a bunch of good fish down that way too. But I was curious to see if you'd spent much time over there.
Yeah, I've fished it a couple times. Nothing real serious. I mean, it's close enough that I should probably get over there and fish a little more. I mean, I've got a little kayak here as well, but a couple of them you can get your big boat in. If you want to.
Yeah,
but,
loon and bluegrass itself are full of good fish, but then there's a lot of those smaller ponds around those where a lot of our guys we do these month-long kayak tournaments where it's catch, photo, release, and so there's guys that are pulling, you know, consistently 4 or 5, even 6 pound giants out of there, taking their picture and putting them back in, but. I was just curious about that, just because I knew you were down in that way. And then you're also down there next to our favorite sponsor of our channel, American Legacy Fishing. So that's where we spend a lot of our time.
They get a little bit of my money.
Yep. Yeah, Caleb, Graham, and the whole crew in there are awesome. Brian and all the guys. Yeah. They're a pleasure. But I guess my question for you too is who is like your bass fishing mentor? Kind of where you kind of got your education from, maybe, if it was a tournament guy that you fished a lot with, or Rex, or, somebody that kind of took you under the wing and kind of schooled you in the ways of the fish. Tell us a little bit about your history there.
Yeah, it was, as a kid growing up, it was my neighbor, like I said, Terry Gray, but it was, for he and I, it was just a lot of farm pond hopping. And
there you go.
And I couldn't put down a spinning rod with a culprit worm, red shad. I mean, you could catch bass anywhere with that in any farm pond, So
that's the one consistent bait for me.
Yeah,
that red shad worm in Monroe, that was like my juice. A Terminator spinner bait and that red shad worm.
Yeah, but then after that, once Rex and I started, fishing together, I mean, it's been all Rex. Just taught me everything that I never even knew or ever even imagined to think about as far as, line bait. I started throwing bait casters, which that was an adventure, getting started at that. And then I'm very normal because I even reel my bait casters left-handed. So I think everybody does that, right?
Yeah.
So that's the one problem we have. We can't share share rods and reels very easily.
Take off of using a spinning rod all them years, right?
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. Yeah, it's hard for me to pick up a spinning rod now. I mean, it's really hard. I mean, about the only time is when we're up at St. Clair or something. But yeah, with Rex, it was. I mean, teaching me, just like he was talking earlier, different times of years, different types of baits. I always just figured when you went to a lake, all you did was drive around the bank and cast to the bank and reel up, you know, and then he started getting me out there off the breaks and really showing me, you know, what that's about, what it looks like, you know, with electronics anymore and finding those areas and then just the whole feel of it. But it's been pretty good. I'd say over the years, he's right. We've had some unbelievable days on that lake that was just great. Most of them, I am probably one of the best net man because that's about what I do all the time is net his fish. And it's okay though, because that money, you know, that check splits. So I'm okay with that. But no, it's I was surprised though, you know, the day on the fish he caught that he got it in the boat because I wasn't there to net it for him. So that's probably a miracle in itself. So, but no, we give each other a hard time. We've had so much fun. It's been you know, it's been 14 years, I guess, going on that we've been fishing together now, and we go all over the country fishing and it's been a blessing. It's really changed my life. So
it's really cool when you can find somebody that you can spend that time with on the water, be it a cousin, a brother, or father, you know, whoever, you know, with everything that kind of the country's been going through for the last many years. And, you know, it seems like, you know, Jeremy and I are both Army veterans, and I've got 3 sons that are Army veterans. Our father's an Army veteran. And then you know, pile on everything that's going on everywhere. And then, you know, with the pandemic, it's just like we sit there and try to convince people, hey, you know what? Being outside is a great place to be. And, you know, I always end my show with, you know, get outside when you can and make some memories, because that's really what it's all about. You know what I mean? And if you can spend that time with somebody, being able to do that and then pass it along so that, you know, your kids may do it and, you know, others, you know, you bring in where they can start taking their kids out. It's, you know, for us, fishing has always been that kind of thing. Jeremy and I, you know, when we both got out of the Army, you know, he guided down at Lake Fork for a while, and then he moved back up here, and we fished some tournaments for a while, and then, you know, then we stopped a bit and, you know, raised kids and you know, got them into bank fishing and all that too. And now that they're all kind of high school and older now, with mine all being out, Jeremy's graduating this year, we've kind of got back into, you know, kayak fishing, but, you know, still have a boat. We'll hop in every now and then as well. But we're getting to that point too, where we want to start exploring more. We've been down to Gunnersville a couple times, where we have plans to, you know, one of our bucket list places is to go up to St. Clair and chase some smallies up there.
You got to do it.
And I guess one of my things for each of you is what's your bucket list lake or fishery or place that you haven't been to yet? Where do you want to go fish one of these days?
Well, the next one on the list is we're going to Dale Hollow. So,
Okay.
I work at Valio. I'm going to retire on Tuesday. So Wednesday I'm packing my stuff, and Thursday we'll be on Dale Hollow. So that's always been kind of a little bit of a bucket list lake for us.
That is a retirement plan in place already. I got 5 years ago. I got a countdown clock at work.
There you go.
It's like 1,500 days. Jeremy's medically retired, so he's waiting for me to get off my butt and retire so that we can go hit all these places that we haven't been yet either. But Dean, what's your like bucket list place?
Yeah, it's so like Rick said, we've hit a couple of them lately, but for me, it's Lake Fork actually. It's the quest for that double-digit largemouth, and still to this day, the largest largemouth came from Monroe. I mean, it was which there's big ones in there. You know, it was a tick under 8 pounds, but we've been down to Florida fishing. Rex's dad, my uncle, used to go down there and stay, and we'd go down there and spend a week with him for, I don't know, we did that probably four years in a row, and we'd have a great time down there. And in fact, my aunt and uncle both have caught 10-pounders. So it's,
Oh, wow.
so it's something in the family that I'm kind of dragging behind on. You know, they've got their 10-pounders. Rex has got the state record, and I'm still trying to learn how to throw a bait caster without backlashing it. So
Yeah, my PB came at Lake Fork bank fishing with a Terminator back in '97, and it was 8.76, and then Jeremy obliterated that a few years later when I moved back up north, and he stayed down on Fork for a while. What was your big one, Jeremy?
11.62.
wow.
Holy cow.
And I've had teens on and just couldn't get them in the boat.
Ugh.
But I do have all my maps of Lake Fork with all my spots marked. So when you get ready to make that trip, Dean, just reach out. We'll get together, have coffee, and we'll do some map study, and I'll have it all for you.
That sounds like a great plan. I appreciate that.
He's not going without me, though. I can tell you
That's
that.
true.
Yeah, I
Oh
hear
yeah.
that. Well, I'll tell you what, though, if you start planning now, that's where they're having the classic at next year's, not on Fork, but in the DFW area. So while they're fishing the other lake, we're going to be fishing on Fork.
Yeah.
Probably take a combination of the kayaks and the boat. Haven't decided yet, but we're definitely going to go down to the classic for that one because there's a big fish down that way.
Yeah, I'll be getting a lot of pressure from Rex to try to retire too, because I've got a ways to go myself. So
yeah, I hear you there.
But I told him he can be doing all of our pre-fishing while I'm working. So.
There you go.
Yeah, have him get all the planning out and get you on the hot spot. You know, when you watch like the Major League Fishing go down there and then fish through that spot, you know, that slot limit, and they're just smashing them, and it's just like, I just want one day of my life. Want one day of my life just like that. Doesn't have to be in a derb, just me in the boat with the camera running and make the greatest video ever. And then I'll be back up here fishing on the little lakes and being happy as you can get with a smile on my face. So, speaking of that, Rec Crest just happened. Classic's starting this weekend, actually tomorrow. You guys watch both, follow both. What's your kind of favorite? You know, a lot of us that I know fish tournaments of various types are also fans of the sport in the pro levels too. Do you guys kind of watch both, or do you have a favorite? Which way do you guys go?
I watch both. I'm probably more into the Bassmaster class, the Bassmaster series. I watch the Red Crest and the MLF stuff on TV when it's on.
Yep.
I have a little bit harder time kind of following that. It just seems like there's so many of them and things like that. I kind of have a hard time keeping up with, you know, what's what. And
yeah,
but I followed some of it on TV or on the internet last week, and then certainly be watching here probably tomorrow. I'm supposed to be working.
yeah,
checking it out. So
yeah, we get these little watch parties going on Facebook when they're live, because you know both the Major League Fishing and Bassmaster basically stream the events the whole time, like all day. So we'll have it up either on, you know, a side screen or, you know, in the Facebook chat with me and Jeremy and a couple buddies, you know, as whoever's doing what. And it's always fun to watch the pros, because that's one thing I love about modern technology with all the cameras and drones and everything. Used to be we would just, you know, they would go fish a tournament. Now you're following along and seeing everything they're doing, every bait, every cast, every decision they have to make. It's kind of interesting, and it's a different way. Instead of having to wait for the Bassmaster magazine to come out, you know, a month later with, you know, how the guys caught them and what they were doing. And we get to watch all of that live these days. And it just fascinates me to see how well they do it. Do you guys have a favorite for the Classic this year?
Well, I signed up for the fantasy fishing thing, and I picked Hank Cherry because I said, well, I caught a fish on his jerk bait, so.
Yep, there you go. Got to be the lucky time.
Yeah, I figured. Yeah, so that was who I picked for number one, but we'll see.
What do you think, Dean?
Pick.
Yeah, I don't know. I probably don't follow the pro part of it as closely. I mean, I do keep an eye on it and see who wins some things. There is a kid that's fishing out of Mount Carmel, Illinois, named Drew Gill. That I belong to a little Hanging Rock Bass Club over there, and he kind of went through that, and all those guys over there know him, and so I kind of keep an eye on him, even though he's fishing, the other series and everything. But it's neat to see these kids that have a dream and fulfill it. That's and then even the old pros, you sit there and you look at some of those guys that have been just doing it year after year after year, and they still catch them. And maybe, I don't know, maybe it's different because, like you said, we go to Monroe and we have a good day, and then we have 5 bad days. And how do these guys just keep doing it for that long? And
100%.
It takes a lot, because if you make it an actual job, something you love doing, and then you turn it into your job, it could go, both ways there. It could be really rewarding, or it could, make you not love it anymore too. So, but
I guess Christy's the hands-on favorite, being like the probably the local, if it would.
Yeah, for sure.
That's kind of I think he's heavily favored there. Of course, I always like watching the young kids and the new guys. Of course, I probably say that more to troll because, with all the use of our modern electronics and trolling motors on power poles, and, everybody just losing their minds. Oh, we just got too much stuff, too many things. Don't watch it. I don't care.
Yeah.
I want to see the best fish caught. I don't care if they're looking at a screen. I mean, people get into all that too, and it's like, oh, they're just looking at screens. Okay, KVD's been looking at a screen since side imaging was, developed. And, he learned how to read it, and he learned to smash the competition that was there before him. And before that, they had paper graphs and had to spend the money on whatever. I don't care. I just want to see big fish caught by the best in the world. I want to see them smacking them, So I know it drives a lot of people nuts seeing all the forward facing or, whatever they have to complain about this week, whether it's, I'm like, well, if you want to go old school, just give them all John boats with the 50-horse motor and limited rods, and we'll just do like classic one. Other than that, I just want to see the best guys go catch the biggest fish and, see what they're capable of. You know what I mean? It's funny seeing some of the setups that you see people talking about, but I don't care. It's not my boat. Whatever. It's still not easy to catch fish, even though people think it's gonna, it is. You still got to go put in the time. You still got to understand, bass patterns, behavior, where they're at, what they're doing. It's going to be fun. So we'll see how this one's won too. But I know most of the events have gone towards a lot of the younger guys, I guess. But we'll see if one of the old hammers still has it in them too. This is a shallow water fishery, so this should play into the hands of some of those, hammers that still know how to pitch, flip, and do their stuff and things. Just depends on what the fish are going to be doing.
Yep.
So if you won the lottery and you had, disposable income, and you don't have to hide what you're spending on rods and reels from our significant others, what would be your dream rod and reel series, your combos, if you just had an unlimited budget to go down and visit American Legacy and say, I want to outfit myself with the best stuff that I can think of? What would you go for, Dean? What would you go look for?
Well, on the really, really high end stuff, I've never really had any of it, so I'd probably get one of each and start working on and see which ones I like the most. But right now I really like these Lew's reels that I've been fishing. They've just seem to fit me good, and I like those. But on my rods, I throw a lot of Abu Garcia rods. The Veritas rods, and it's just what I started buying and using, and it's stuck with me, and I'm comfortable with it, and I don't see any sense in changing it myself. But
built up a lot of trust in them, so
yeah. But with unlimited money, I'd be buying a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
I've found that as the arthritis sets in and things get a little older, and maybe as kids and grandkids, start becoming a little less expensive, I started, treating myself a little bit. It seems like, and Rex may know this too. You know, it's sometimes you got to get to the point where you've taken care of everybody your whole life. It's time to start treating yourself a little bit here and there. So Rex, same question to you. If you had unlimited, you know, whatever resources, what would you be most interested in playing with or trying? Or have you already found that and you just going to keep expanding on that?
Well, I can't say I've found it. I'm kind of like Dean. I typically don't spend a high amount of money on a rod and a reel. You know, I've got a lot of Bass Pro qualifier reels and some Abu Garcia and St. Croix rods. You know, some of the St. Croix rods. Some of them I bought them used off a good buddy of mine, but I've got some new ones too. But if I had a blank check, I don't know. You guys were talking about the Loomis NLXs and stuff. I would be, you know, looking at something like that, or maybe a Dobbins, or some of them Daiwa steels. I think steels or
The
steel
rods, yeah.
You know, if the money's no object, yeah. And
I tell you what,
getting a handful of them, yeah.
I went through the whole Dobbins line and many lines. I kind of got connected with them a little bit because they offer veterans a 30% discount straight off the top. And Gary Dobbins, you know, to me, the Dobbins rods, they're the gateway drug because they're just up from, you know, what we can find at our local Dick's or you know, even Wally World or wherever, Bass Pro, whatever, you know, and they've got lines that are like beginning price range up to some super bougie high end, you know, getting up there, but they're kind of like the gateway of you know, your lower middle end to, then after that you're like, oh my God, what did I do? I've witnessed the lightness of the craziness and the strength, and then I got to go get more. And so, Gary Dobbins does a great job across the board when it comes to those rods, and they have a great warranty program too. I mean, you can, if you got one, you know, let's say you got Champion XP, which I think typically runs like $260. This happened to Jeremy once. He was like, you know what, I'm going to get it. And one of the guys was telling him about it. He bought it, and then his service dog leaned against it and snapped it. But they replaced it. No questions asked for $70 replacement fee. He literally walked into the outdoorsman up in Greenwood and said, I broke this rod. You know, I know you guys have a replacement thing. It was like, wasn't it like $70, Jeremy, something like that?
75.
Yeah, 75. They're
So
like, oh, okay.
I bought it one day. My dog broke it that same day. I took it in the next day, explained what happened, and they sent me home with a brand new one. Cool. And I'd actually went in there looking for a G Loomis because I've been sold on G Loomis for 25, 26 years. Like I said earlier, I've got two, my jig rod and my worm rod. I still use those in all the major tournaments. They're phenomenal. So
he won't spend the money on anything else, but his Texas rig, that's
well, because
he throws it 99% of the time.
Yeah, JT's a chatterbait guy. I can do pretty much whatever I need to do with a version of a worm, be it a 7-inch, a 10-inch, or a 12. I can pretty much cover most of the techniques using that bait. So that's where I put the most money. And it's paid dividends ever since I did that.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. I can't say I've never had my hands on any of the high quality stuff to know what it'd even be like. But yeah, for sure. I know it certainly makes, you know, if I'm going to put money, I want to put money in the rod over anything.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, we tell people
when you can feel the bass inhale your bait,
it's nuts,
and it's just so shocking that it's like, oh my gosh, and so you know exactly when to set the hook. To me, that's invaluable.
Yeah,
it's nuts. So, same question, since you guys are boaters, and I know one thing all boaters love to look at is new boats. What would be your dream boat?
Dean?
Well, yeah. Well, I guess I just bought it.
There you go.
So, I mean, if I'd have
now we
had,
know why they're not spending all their money in rods and reels.
that's right. That's right.
Yeah. Now, see, that's a different. See, I buy a kayak, and then that expense is done. There's no gas to
Right.
put in it, so I can put my money in rods and reels. Go
Yeah,
the boat route.
I'm pretty sure my wife's listening, so I just bought a $1,400 boat is what I just bought. So, no, Rex started with a Skeeter, and I bought a 19-foot Skeeter that I had for a long time. In fact, I still have it. But then I just bought a ZXR20. So that's basically my plans. It's the last boat I'll have. If I'd have been able to go out and just spend unlimited money on it, it'd have been an FX or something like that. But it'd still been a Skeeter. I just kind of like the way they ride, and it's just been good boat. And I really like the Yamaha engine. So
yeah, same here. Skeeter.
There you go. It's so funny. My old partner back in the day, in the club, he had a Skeeter, and I wanted one so bad for so many years. And I always had like little John boats and V bottoms because kids were little and whatnot. But I named a cat Skeeter, and the kids grew up with that, and it's like, well, Dad, you never did buy your Skeeter. It's like, yeah, I know. I got a crappie boat, we fish and low, and then, all my stuff goes into kayaks and rods and reels. But I always loved, but and you see them, we're walking around Redcrest last week, you see Jeremy had a 21-foot nitro. And then like I knew guys that were in the Bass Cats back in the day, and the Rangers. And I think my main partner up until Jeremy moved back that I used to tournament fish with all the time, we were in a Ranger for a long time. But it's amazing to me. And if I had stupid money someday, I'd go get a nice bass boat again, just to be able to go hit some of these bigger lakes and cover a little more too. But it's always fun to go out and fish with other guys who've kind of made that investment. It's just like you just get to sit around and look and just like, man, this thing is incredible. It's awesome. So I'm gonna coming up on about an hour, and don't want to keep you guys too long because I know people got to work on Fridays too. But if someone were to move to this area, say they're going to school at IU, or I know you went to Purdue, so I won't use that as an example because you'll send them. If somebody moved to the area, say around the area, and Monroe was what they were asking about, and not looking for big giants, just to go learn how to catch bass, where would you kind of send them, and what would be like the basic techniques that you would tell them just to get them started? Say they've been crappie fishing and they're trying to get into bass fishing a little bit. They got a little John boat, so they don't have all kinds of range. But what kind of area of the lake would you point them to, and what would you kind of tell them to get started with?
Well, I'd give them the same advice that my mentor gave me, and that would be put in at Paintown and go around the point to Moore's Creek. And just work Moore's Creek from front to back. There's a lot of little shallow pockets branch off, and there's some off water structure, and you can get all the way to the back. There's a creek channel that feeds in there, and there's fish in all stages all year round. So that would be a great place to start, and most of it's idle zone. So if you're in a small boat, you're not out there fighting the big boats on the weekends and things like that. So that would be everything that they would need to do would be in that creek.
Any baits you'd start them out with?
I
always tell everybody a spinner bait, just because that's something anybody can throw anytime.
And it's going to be seasonal dependent, but like I say, early this time of year, I'd be throwing a jerk bait, chatter bait, and maybe flipping a jig or some things like that. And as the season progresses, square bill, maybe some top water. Yep. And, worms and things like that in the summertime. And then, back in the fall, certainly they'd be up there schooling on shad and stuff. And, Dean and I, for a long time, we couldn't hardly catch fish on a swim bait, but now we're starting where we can kind of get them to bite a swim bait a little bit now. So we'll throw swim baits in the fall and stuff like that too. So.
You guys ever, I don't know if it would really have to be a seasonal thing. You guys ever put in and get around up in Crooked Creek at all?
Yeah, occasionally we're like lost up there when we go up there.
Yeah, when the water's really high.
Yeah, it's hard. You know, most of the guys that we fish with, you know, when they want to fish up there, it's hard to compete because they, you know, we go under the causeway and the other guys go the other direction. And
Yep.
there's been a few times when we've been up the other end and we just feel so out of place up there that like we don't fit in. But it's certainly great fishing up there. There's a lot of times we've had our butts kicked by the guys up there, and it's certainly, maybe now that I'm going to be retired, this goes out to Brad Stodgel and Sean York and Chad Smith and all my buddies. I may be spending some more time up there.
There you go. I know it's hard for a lot of the boat guys to get up there because, I mean, sometimes it's even too skinny for kayaks when they draw it down. But seems like in the springtime around, you know, April, you know, I can get up in there and I've waylaid them. You know, I've had days where I just 3 to 4.5 pound bass. Like it seemed like every other cast. It's just one of those, everything happened to come together at the perfect time. And yeah, it was just great. But yeah. And then sometimes you go up there and nothing. It's just the way it goes.
Yeah.
All right. Well, Jeremy, you got any more questions?
That pretty much covered it. I had a lot of my questions answered just in listening to some of their other explanations. So now I'm really grateful for you guys coming on and sharing this time with us because it's invaluable to us. It actually makes me want to start going back to Monroe and taking a second look at it.
There's going to be a whole lot of people on Monroe this year.
Yeah,
I'll keep driving over to Brush Creek or Greene County while the floods and the masses are over there tearing up Monroe this summer. It's going to be crazy. But that's cool.
I appreciate you guys having us on, and I'm just riding on Rex's coattails, so it's been kind of fun for me.
I mean, you know what, though? That's what partners are for, though. I mean, just being able to, you know, you enjoy it, even though you, as I understand it, you weren't even there that day, were you?
No, I wasn't.
Well, he really was. In hindsight, I mean, indirectly he was, because he was the guy that made all the phone calls. He was the first call I made. He's the guy that got a hold of all of our buddies and the conservation officer that set up the scales, that got it weighed in and witnessed that, and then the biologist that
because you guys had to go through a bunch of craziness just to find somebody that would let you get a certified scale to weigh it on, huh?
So Dean was the network guy that pulled all that together. I was basically was going to turn the fish loose because it was such a process to get set up, you know. But Dean's the guy that pulled all that off with a lot of help from some other buddies. So
have you had anybody from like Berkeley reach out yet, or any media like you know, wanting to write any articles and things like that too?
Yeah, I mean, somewhat. Yeah, I mean, we've Louis Stout, who writes for Bassmaster, has been in touch with us. We've talked to him. He's done a story for Michiana Outdoors, and he thinks maybe, you know, Bassmaster might do something, a little blurb or something. And so yeah, I've not heard anything from Berkeley, but I think they've been contacted, and you know, St. Croix and some of these other guys have reached out and talked to me anyway, just kind of get the scoop. But yeah, it's been kind of
cool. Yeah,
know,
I need
totally
to
unexpected surprise. Yeah, for sure.
I need to get have Ken Duke reach out to you. He's a bass historian, and he runs a podcast called Bass After Dark. But he's been like the bass historian for like decades. He used to work for Bassmaster way back in the day. But a lot of those guys cover like big bass stories and things like that too. Might be interesting to get on and talk to him as well. You'd probably really enjoy that. He's got a lot of stories and loves, you know, hearing especially, you know, new stories like this too, as far as like the bass fishing lore goes too. So that'd be pretty cool. I'll have to shoot him your contact info.
Sure.
And have him reach out to you. It'd be a good episode for his podcast as well. All right. Yep. With that, I will let you guys go. I've been watching the audience. I was expecting a bunch of different questions, but I think everybody's just been chatting and in awe of first of all, it was Monroe. But didn't see a ton of questions come in lately because I think you guys really did a good job of answering all the questions that we had and telling the story. And now let me ask you this: Do you pursue smallies as well? I mean, I know you said you go to St. Clair. Do you like go to specific places to focus on that? Because I guess Del Hollow is supposed to be a pretty good smallie place as well, isn't it?
So yeah, I've heard, yeah. But yeah, I mean, we do. We got started going to St. Clair with Chad Smith, who coaches the high school team over at Owen Valley, and he takes a group of kids up there every year for a senior trip, like eight kids.
Oh, okay,
and
that's
Dean
cool.
and I, we run captain boats for him when the kids fish tournaments around here. So that's kind of how we got it hooked into St. Clair. So like this will be like the fourth year now we've been up there.
Yeah,
So that's that's a great
And I'm
time.
guessing you haven't caught a fish anywhere near as big as
Oh no. I think
right
five
here,
and a
minutes
half.
away from your house, and we're driving up
But
north.
I
and
can
catch
tell
it
you
right
the
here.
numbers up there in one day way out count the number of smallmouth I've caught in Monroe in 30 years. So
Yeah, I can imagine.
that's the difference. But
Yeah,
and there's some,
and that'll probably just wear you out too, I bet.
yeah, you guys have got to go. It's a good time. And we fish some down in Alabama, northern Alabama. We'll go down a couple lakes down there. We'll catch some smallmouth down there as well. So
Yeah, okay, yeah. We've recently added Gunnersville, and that's a cool thing. We're right in the middle between St. Clair and then only 6 hours from Gunnersville as well.
Mm-hmm.
So that's like one of our favorite places now. We'll be heading out that way next weekend for our national championship. So that'll be a fun time. But I still got to go try to catch me a big one down there too. But gentlemen, I want to thank you again for your time. It's been great having you on. Hopefully we see you guys on the water one of these days.
absolutely.
I'm sure people are going to be, hey, there's the guy, you're probably going to get all kinds of that. So it should be pretty fun too. But thanks again for joining in tonight. And we'll let you guys get out of here. And like I said, hopefully we'll catch up with you guys on the water. And for everybody else out there listening and watching along, as always, get outside when you can and make some memories. One cast at a time.